All right, back on the 72, or should I say on the 72. We haven't done a whole lot on this car since we moved. So we're going to jump on this thing and actually, as we've said before in the video last week, get it ready for road use. One of the first things I want to do on this is to fix the power windows though, because the power windows are not operational, and in South Carolina, you just want to be able to roll the windows down at certain points, just if nothing else to evacuate the heat out of the car. It does have air conditioning, but that needs work too. So, you know, it's a cascade failure effect. The quick thing I want to say about this is what we're talking about here is not just on the 72 Mustangs. Mustang ran power windows 1971 to 73 and probably on up from there. Not sure about the Mustang 2s, but that was the very first year, 1971, that Ford put power windows in the Mustang. Now the Cougar had power windows starting in 1969, and the Thunderbird all the way back into the early 60s. And 50s probably. I'm not sure again on the power windows, but I do believe the early Thunderbirds actually did have power windows available. So you have electric power windows on a lot of Ford products, and what we're going to be talking about today is a good generality on how to go in and start diagnosing if you have issues on your power windows. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run over to the tabletop and talk to you a little bit about what you're going to need to do this sort of stuff, because there are a couple things that are going to be necessary if you're going to be doing power windows on a Ford, because believe it or not, this stuff is super stupid complicated. Ford and their complications. All right, so grab my glasses because I'm going to need them to talk to you about what we're going to be talking about next. First thing I want to say about this is get yourself a set of the assembly manuals if they are available for your Ford. If not, you're going to be dealing with the service manuals, and believe you me, the detail level on them isn't as high. What I will say too is that Ford probably typically ran much the same kind of setup on everything from, let's just say, the 1968 on up models. All of that's probably going to be pretty similar. I don't know if they were running safety relays and circuit breakers prior to that, but I can almost imagine that they really didn't change a whole lot between anything that went 12 volt on up. So what I'm going to say is assembly manuals are your best friend if they are available. Now we have one for our 1971 to 72, which is what we're working on right now. This is our assembly manual, and I'll show you why I think those things are important. For one, this outlines the lay of everything within the car. You'll see that it's a little hard to distinguish here, but this basically shows you that you have a power line that runs all the way across the car to the safety relay here. And then it also breaks it out and shows you the different iterations that you could have for the circuit breaker, which is right here, right next to the voltage regulators. So it shows you, if your car is still stock, where everything should be laying on this. Even to the interior, it'll show you where all the wiring is supposed to go. Now, admittedly, the drawings are a little weak now, but it is what it is. And it moves all the way through it. You can see that it goes from the driver's door to the passenger's door to the rear window setups for the switches. And it lays out all the different optional things that you can have, from power windows to rear window defrosters on these cars. The nice thing about it is, once you know the layout, you can move to the wiring diagram that they have in them, and that's what we have here. We have the wiring diagram for our car. Now, if you're going to be testing things like this out, you're going to want to probably start off at your power source, which is your battery, and Cam's going to go over that in just a second. Now what you have here though is it'll show you things like this is your circuit breaker. This symbol is for a circuit breaker, and then you have a wire coming off of the circuit breaker that goes over to the safety relay. So you're going to follow the circuit breaker, and it'll move through the book to the next page set, which is here. And then it comes in on this side of it. So in other words, these would probably be laid next to each other. And it comes in on that same wire, and it is a 16 gauge wire labeled HPO. Now you can also backtrack this from the relay. So you go here, it goes into the relay, and it shows you here that you have a female on the wire side and a male on the safety relay side. Now why does Ford do that? Well, the reason for that is you put the female side on the power side. You have a hot wire. If that comes unplugged or whatever inside the engine bay, you don't want a hot lead hanging out with a male spade connector because it will cause a short. So Ford always puts the hot leg on a female side. And you'll notice that on here you have a male side. All of these are male going out, and even the power coming in. So anything that could have power to it that's going to be a hanging wire is going to have a cover on it. You have the 59C. Now, why is this marking here? Why do we have a 59C on the safety relay? That is because there's a corresponding box down here on the next page which shows you what 59C consists of. You have a split spade connector, and then you have two female connectors, and they are marked for what they are on here. And then all of this in turn goes to a series of connection wires that goes in here. Real briefly, I'll talk about what all this means. LB-BKD, this is your light blue and black, which also corresponds to a color code somewhere else in the book, and it may be on these two pages, but usually it's up at the front of this section. Underneath that, you have in parentheses a number. That is your wire gauge. So you have a 12 wire gauge. Then it goes to a connector, and this runs out to your power window switching assembly. It also has a bypass for the lock, and then these go out to your motors. I'm going to say this real quickly about this before we jump into this even further. 9 chances out of 10, it's either going to be your circuit breaker or it's going to be your safety relay that are causing you issues for anything feeding power into the car. So those are going to be the first places you want to check. Now, if you guys want to see another video on us really going in and bearing down on what all this stuff means on a wiring harness, leave a comment in the section below. Let us know if that's something you want to know more about, because it is pretty fascinating what you can find out of these assembly manuals if you know how to read them. Right now, though, Cam's going to jump in there and he's going to see what we've got as far as power issues going from the battery to the interior.
All right, so first thing first, whenever you're chasing an electrical problem, know your battery voltage, because that is the maximum potential the system has. Right now it's sitting at 13.1. We've had this on charge for a few days, so it's still kind of high, but that's good. We don't have the batteries connected right now, so I'm going to be doing most of this through ohms, which is perfectly fine for what we're doing because something isn't working, which normally means something's not connected. So the power on this circuit comes from this post down to this terminal block into this 20 amp circuit breaker here. So I'm going to check ohms, and this is kind of rusty, so you need to scrape 0.2 ohms across that circuit breaker. So that circuit breaker is good enough in theory. Power should pass between it. So from this circuit breaker, the power goes on a black wire through this harness across the back. All right, so it goes to a relay across the other side on the shock tower on the driver's side. So I'm going to put just a little clamp on the output of the circuit breaker, spin it around so it's got good continuity. Get my meter over that way. It's probably going to need to be right about there. And go to the other side and see if the wire from the back has continuity to that relay. All right, so I've got my connector over there to trace the power wire coming to this relay. And 0.2 ohms across that wire. So this relay will be getting power if the battery was connected. So next up, we need to check power into this relay and also ground continuity from this relay to the negative battery cable. All right, so somewhere in the 1 ohm range, which is pretty fine. I'd like a little bit less, but this car's been sitting a while. I'm sure there's corrosion in some spots, but that will be perfectly serviceable. So next up, we need to start checking power to this relay from the cab. So that means hooking the battery back up and making sure no smoke comes out. All right, so I'm going to hook the ground cable up.
Yep, relay is working.
Yep, so we can hear the relay clicking.
So we got the circuit breaker works,
Yep.
relay works.
That means interior control power is working on the relay. So in theory, either that relay is not passing current or there is a problem on the inside.
Okay, I do see something I hadn't noticed before. That blade on the relay has nothing on it.
That may be the problem.
Why don't we check
Just for fun, so what do you know? It's got 12 volts.
Wow. Who knew?
So that blue wire, that looks like it's plugged into the back of the
Yeah, it looks like it's plugged in the back of the solenoid, but that may not be the case then.
Oh yeah, no, it's plugged into air right now. It's Bluetooth connectivity.
That's bad Bluetooth because
Yeah.
it's not working.
Got bad Wi-Fi signals.
That could almost sounded bad.
All right, so that's plugged in now. So
Okay, so
pull the lever, Kronk.
pull the lever, Kronk, as you just said.
And just for giggles, I've got my amp clamp on it to see how many amps the motor pulls.
Does work though. How many amps is it pulling?
4? That is, I was expecting for one of a motor that old to be like 10, 15.
Yeah, I was too. I was thinking it would be more amperage than that.
Yeah.
It actually, when the windows are not in the runs over here, it actually rolls down pretty good.
Yeah, so when it gets to the bottom of the run, it gets to like 12, 15.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. It's because there's nothing on up
Yeah.
here, and as it rolls down, it gets more.
Well,
We solved the problem.
crisis averted of having to pull the interior apart.
You know I was not excited
No,
about that
me
idea.
neither. These are not fun to pull
I
apart.
wonder why that wire got unplugged. I wonder if I did that doing something in there and I just didn't realize it. All right, well, I guess for what we're going to do now, let's just do this. We'll sit down and we'll talk to everybody about some of the due diligence that you'll do beyond this, if that's not just your problem, is just, the relay not being plugged in correctly. So,
You'll have that on these big jobs. Want to turn the key off?
yeah, why not? Kind of makes me want to start it and run it now. I know we shouldn't. Okay, so we got lucky today.
Yes.
But if you don't get lucky, if the relay is okay and you're still not getting operation, 9 chances out of 10, if you're not getting operation, you're going to have to trace that power wire that's going into the cab to its source point at the switch.
Yeah, it leaves the relay, goes into the cab, and goes straight to the switches. And then you need to test each one of those, make sure power is flowing through them.
Right, because if you have, like, say, the main window is working and the other 3 are working, but the passenger side front window is not working, most of the time that's going to be a motor problem.
Yeah, either that motor or that switch.
Yes.
If all of the windows aren't working, majority of the time I would say it's probably the control side of that relay. If you plug it in, if you hook the battery up and you don't hear it clicking with the key on, like we just did, you need to look at the illumination, the interior illumination circuit, make sure that's getting power, because that's where the control side of that relay gets power from.
Which is on the manuals. If you go and look at your manuals and check that out, that's where that's working from, because it's basically the convenient light circuit is part of that safety relay for some reason.
It's where it draws power, yeah.
Ford.
Yeah, that makes much sense. It also it can draw power from the map lamp as well, depending on what position the switch is in.
Yeah, and see, because you got this car is a convenience group car, so it has the underdash courtesy lights, it has the map lights, so all that stuff is tied into that circuit, which is one. So
the bulbs necessarily don't need to be working, but they need to have power.
Right.
Yeah.
Power needs to be run out to them, or it could be a problem with that.
Yeah.
Weird. Ford is so weird. So anyway, that's basically it. So your bottom line is, you're going to have to do traces. You're going to have to unplug the wire at the relay, go inside and do a continuity check between it and where it terminates at the switches to make sure you don't have a break in the wire there. That's your other thing. Breaks in wires, which is less common really. It's usually going to more be a problem with a switch or a motor, because those are the 2 frequent use items. You see people leaving the door with the windows down, water gets inside, starts to contaminate those switches. The motor itself, if the window sweeps aren't good on the car, the motor itself can start to see a lot of water and possibly be damaged that way as well. So those, I think, are your bigger points. Is, you know, if you're having a problem with one window switch, it could be the switch or it could be the motor, and that's when you start having to pull door panels off to check switch and motor to make sure you're getting good continuity to those, and also getting 12 volts of power to them.
It could also be a lubrication problem on the rails.
It could, yes, it could.
Because that can burn out the motor eventually, or it can just stall the motor to where
and
then
these
it pops the
cars
circuit breaker.
aren't quite as bad on that as some of the earlier ones with the scissor types, because these have the bar type. A little less of an issue on that. That's why you see that window dance some coming up. It's just a nature of not being able to get a brand new part to fix that. So when I put this car together, I should say, back, you know, when
Yonder days.
me and Mark Twain going down the Mississippi. So I guess that's really it for this episode. I know it's quick, but this is what we intended to do for this week. We got really fortunate. I'm hoping there's some information that you can take home, so to speak, and use in your shop whenever you're working on your classic Ford. Do us a favor, though. Be kind to each other. Love on each other. Treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Autorestomod. Well, we got that done, so I guess next week we're going to move to tuning, because you said that's what you want to do next.
Yeah.
You want to put plugs in it?
I don't want to, but then it'll be done. And we shouldn't have
Passenger
to do it again.
side, 10 minutes. Driver's side, day and a half.
Yeah.
It's going to be...
Pay somebody else.
We have no one to pay. Do you want some monkey from a local auto shop working on this thing?
No.
There we go. So guess who it is?
This monkey.
I'm the monkey and you're the monkey. I'll tell you what, I'll do the driver's side even. You take the passenger.
I have a ratchet that may make the driver's side not bad.
Let's take a look at that next week. We'll talk to folks about it and we'll show them some tools that they can do to make that job a little bit easier.
Yeah.
See ya. Beer 30!